Joined now by Tim May of 97.1 The Fan and Letterman Row, along with Joey Kaufman of the Columbus Dispatch. And, Joey, we all thought Ohio State would win this game, but I don't know that any of us saw the blowout that was coming. I mean, it was total domination. How do you explain what we saw?
Yeah, I mean, last week we were just talking about this was a juncture in the season because Ohio State had played so few games. We didn't know if this was going to be the game where everything came together and they played a complete game and everything clicked, or they never find their rhythm. And then there's all this remorse in hindsight about a team that was never able to kind of combine everything together. But some of the flashes that we saw throughout the season did happen to come together on one special night. Justin Fields, Trey Sermon. We had seen both the passing game and the running game click on different nights, but it comes together at the same time. You saw the defense tighten up. So really just all the flashes that we saw throughout the season happened to click all at once.
You know, Tim, you look at the performance by Justin Fields, simply incredible. We'll be talking about that for years to come, especially after taking that shot to the rib area and the gutsy performance he showed coming in. Talk about how significant his performance was. And what are you hearing about that injury? I mean, ribs, we assume it's a rib injury. They're not easy to come back from.
I think they assessed that basically he had in essence, pretty deeply bruised situation there is the way I'm understanding it. And this idea that they just went in there and stuck a couple of needles in him and he went back out there with no assessment is, I think, pretty inaccurate. But the bottom line was, yeah, what a gutsy performance. As I tweeted at the end of that game, greatest performance by an Ohio State quarterback I've ever seen in a bowl situation, without a doubt. I mean, there have been bigger numbers. You know, we all remember the daring do of Cardale Jones in the postseason back in 2014. But Justin Fields lifted it up, not one, not two, but about 3 or 4 notches in that game. And, I said in the pregame show on 97.1 The Fan, I expected Ohio State to run the ball right at those guys, and I expected that to open things up in the secondary. And that's exactly what happened. There was going to be opportunities. This was not the Clemson defense of the year before, and Ohio State definitely exploited it.
Joey, going off that, to me, the difference in this ball game is, like Tim said, Ohio State in the first quarter decided, hey, we're going to play smash mouth football. We're going to run it down your throat. They were opening gaping holes. And my goodness, Trey Sermon, where is this kid coming from? I mean, and what is Oklahoma thinking now? Because this kid looks to be all world.
Trey Sermon's vision, I think, for one, deserves a lot of credit because he's able to see some holes and maneuver his way behind Ohio State's offensive line, which also deserves credit. I think it's a matchup Ohio State was able to take advantage of, certainly in the trenches. The Buckeyes looked like the Big Ten team there and just was able to overpower Clemson's front. And when Clemson won the national title in 2016 and in 2018, it seemed like they had defensive linemen who were first-round picks growing on trees. And I don't know if they had the same talent up there. And Ohio State has some really talented guys in the offensive line, like Wyatt Davis, who could be a first-round pick. Josh Byers, another top draft pick. And Trey Sermon ran through some big holes and was able to take advantage of them.
Tim, you look at the receiving game, too. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. We both knew these guys were elite, but, can we make the argument that these may be the 2 best receivers in the country? I mean, they are a dangerous tandem.
I think Devontae Smith and whoever's playing with him at Alabama would argue against, maybe at least they're on par with them. And we're going to see definitely next Monday night. But no, I mean, Chris Olave just looks so smooth when he's playing his game. Garrett Wilson can make almost any catch. But, man, let us not forget about Jeremy Ruckert and Luke Farrell in that game, the way Ohio State was able to finally employ the tight ends in a big-time way, because that was definitely one of the, as I called it, low-hanging fruit that was out there for Ohio State wanted to pick it against Clemson's defense. And it'll be the same way against Alabama. When they've got those 2 wide receivers on the field and those 2 tight ends on the field, this is a pretty formidable-looking passing attack.
Tim, one other thing. I thought that as good as the offense looked, to me, the defense really came out and played. I mean, they set the tone. And to me, the defense was the difference in this game. Did you see that kind of performance coming against an offense like Clemson that has lit people up?
You know, you never know what to expect because, you know, one little slip here by a defensive back or one little bad angle taken, as you saw with Sean Wade a couple of times, and boom, they get big plays. But, you know, here's the thing. You weren't going to shut out Trevor Lawrence or shut down Trevor Lawrence and his receivers and his running back, but you could control them. You know, they still scored 28 points. You know, that's a pretty good chunk of points, but not anywhere close to what they had been scoring. But yeah, I mean, I thought this defense at various times made huge plays. You know, Justin Hilliard having the senior, you know, the final year of a lifetime. You know, Haskell Garrett just playing way out of his gourd. I mean, just unbelievable all year. And those guys brought it to the fore. And, you know, even the secondary, they gave up some plays. You're going to against this kind of offense, but they also made some plays. So yeah, pretty interesting.
Joey, I thought the defense, I mean, set the tone. They frustrated. You could see they were frustrating Trevor Lawrence. He got hit a lot in that ballgame.
He did, and I think we should acknowledge the in-game turnaround and adjustments made by Ohio State defensive coordinator Kerry Combs, because early in that game, it did not look like the defense was going to have success really slowing down Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. You saw some deja vu with last year, the way Trevor Lawrence was able to use his legs and get into the end zone for a touchdown, the way they were able to use Travis Etienne in the screen game. And both of those big names for Clemson, those star players, they really slowed down. Travis Etienne was not really a huge threat in the passing game beyond the first quarter. And Trevor Lawrence threw for over 400 yards, but he almost needed 50 pass attempts to do it. So they made them work for everything they got.
Tim, as we look at this matchup between Ohio State and Alabama, I'll tell you what, both teams possess explosive offenses. I've watched Alabama play a lot this year. I know you have too. I'll tell you, Tim, and tell me I'm crazy or I just want to hear what you think. I think as I look at what will be different between these two clubs, I think I give the edge to Ohio State defensively if this defense can continue what they started against Clemson. You know, Alabama's given up a bunch of points this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State goes about it defensively because Mac Jones, the Alabama quarterback, record-setting Alabama quarterback in many respects, is not the same dual threat animal that Trevor Lawrence is. And so that might give Ohio State a chance to really take a breath defensively and be a little, for whatever you want to call it, a little more creative in a coverage situation. Devontae Smith can get open against anyone, it appears. Alabama's incredibly talented wide receiver, who a lot of people think might win the Heisman here in a couple of days. We'll see if that happens. But the bottom line is, I think it allows Ohio State to play a little more straight up against these guys. So I'm curious to see how that goes. And then on the other side, you know me, Dom, I've known Alabama football for over 60 years. Was born there and stuff and kept up with it. This is the best Alabama offense I've ever seen. But I said going into the preseason, I thought that this Ohio State offense had the chance to be the best Ohio State offense from a pure super threat potential. And when you get over 600 yards in a college football playoff semifinal like Ohio State did, I think this Ohio State offense is finally playing to that edge. So, this idea that the over-under could be into the 70s from the standpoint of total points scored in this game, that might even be a little low.
Joey, as you look at Alabama, they don't hide who they are. Nick Saban has a system in place. I mean, are we going to look at rock'em sock'em football? Is this going to be a power game?
I think Alabama is going to be versatile. I think one of the things that Nick Saban has shown over the years is he's been willing to adapt to his personnel. I mean, this was a program early on in the last decade where they were that power team as you talked about, but now they have speed on the outside with Devontae Smith, and they're going to throw the ball, I think, a good bit as well. Tim's right on the over-under. It's in the mid-70s, and there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. I think the key will be if Ohio State's defense can give their offense a chance to put up enough points and not be in too tight a shootout.
Tim, Vegas has made Alabama an 8-point favorite. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, they're undefeated. they handled Notre Dame. I mean, yeah, I know that Notre Dame game ended up being 1 touchdown closer than a lot of people thought, but it was a late touchdown that did that. I mean, this is a very good Alabama football team. It's not the greatest Alabama defensive team by any stretch, in my opinion, but offensively, with Najee Harris at the running back and Devontae Smith and that fleet of receivers, this is a incredibly potent Alabama offense. Like I said, the best one I've ever seen from the standpoint of just being able to strike anywhere and everywhere. The difference between these two is going to be the quarterback position, I do believe. If in fact Justin Fields is not hampered coming out of this game where he got banged up, if he can really play his game again, that's going to be probably the difference in this game, I do believe.
Joey, last thing, Ryan Day made no secret about it, wanted another shot at Clemson. They got their wish. I'm interested to see what you think Nick Saban's thinking. Obviously, the last time Ohio State and Alabama played was back in 2014. And obviously, Ohio State won that game. Is that still in Nick Saban's head? I mean, two different clubs that met in 2015, but is that still in his head?
I think it probably is in his head, and I think he will probably remember some of the assistants who were on Ohio State staff and maybe the game planning stuff. But I don't think it's going to be as personal as it was for Ohio State versus Clemson, because it's an entirely different group of players. And I think a lot of Ohio State's focus on redemption against Clemson was player-driven, because so many of those guys look back on some of the plays that contributed to that loss. Chris Olave, the final play in the Fiesta Bowl where he breaks off the route and goes the other way. He personally wants another crack at that, and he got that. You look at Sean Wade, who got called for targeting. He wanted another chance at Trevor Lawrence, and to finish the game in the fourth quarter, he got another chance. I don't think Alabama's roster is compiled in the same way where they're going to view Ohio State like that. They might go back and look at film and try and identify some patterns with some Ohio State assistant coaches who have been held over, but I think that's about it.
Dom, you know what's in Nick Saban's head? Those games against Ole Miss and Florida this year when his team had to win a shootout. This is going to be the best offense he's played probably against this year, with exception maybe of Florida. Florida was right up there. That's definitely what's in Nick Saban's head, is what's right in front of him, as Joey said.